Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
All right, welcome back. We're going to dive into a topic that might scare some people. Do you have fear around the scale?
You know, it's so weird because I really don't train to get better aesthetics. That's not my focus. But I do have fear of the scale.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And I think it's kind of funny because it's just one of those things that makes me so aware of how ingrained it is that we're judged on this number.
Yeah.
Or we maybe should be judging ourselves on this number, or like, got to control that number, or what's it going to say today? And yeah,
for sure. I don't even know. I think for me, I'm the same way. It's like it's a powerful thing. And I think what's obviously there's a message around the scale and what it means in terms of your like self-worth and are you a good person,
right?
Are you like
are you successful in life?
Yeah, like do you like even care about anything? Are you like or you just have you just said fuck it to life? And, it's like but I think there's also this thing where I wish people could experience the modern comforts of life and also live in an environment and a lifestyle and a world in space and time where body weight basically just self-corrected. It was just, you just went about your life and it just was relatively normal, and was that ever the case? Like,
yeah, like when did we start weighing ourselves? Like when did that become a thing?
Yeah, so I could make some guesses here, but it's like, if we talk about like primitive culture tribes,
right,
or like tribal, nomadic living, kind of prehistoric type of living, they didn't care. Like nobody was worried about their weight. It was like, can I get enough food to like survive? And if I got more than enough food to survive, that was great. I wasn't gonna like push the plate of, like the most recent kill away. I was gonna just gorge myself because there was enough of an experience to know like that might be gone next week. It might be gone the week after. Then there came a time where there was a surplus of food and nutrients in kind of perpetuity. It was like, okay, now we have like, we can harvest our own food. We know how to like raise like a herd of cattle. Like now we have as much food as we need, more than we need. We can have it any time. And whenever that began to happen, that then started, a period that from then on where, you couldn't just trust that you were gonna, your body was just gonna normalize around a healthy weight or a weight that would suit whatever environment you were in. It started a process of like, okay, well, we have these powerful evolutionary biology, physiological mechanisms inside of us that drive us to want to consume food because that is survival. And now there's more of it available than we could all ever consume. And it's there, and it's all within, in most people's cases, 100 feet from where they're sitting at any given moment. There's a plethora of calories to go and consume. And so you just can't trust that. But along with that came modern living and modern comforts and, a vastly evolved, environment that we live in that is much more hospitable. We can enjoy lots of wonderful things and not have to fend for our lives every single day. So there's benefits and drawbacks, but the drawback, one of the drawbacks is that people are just like in this constant state of like, what's my body gonna do?
Yeah.
What's my body weight gonna do?
Yeah.
And you know, I spent a long time in my life just sort of like, how do we navigate that? How do we figure that out? Like, but it's like, well, we're never going to figure it out. It's always going to be a thing.
Yeah.
There's always going to be tasty, delicious calories in abundance around us. And we're going to be faced with stress, emotion, you know, sleep deprivation, all kinds of things that are going to mess with our ability to like determine what is the right amount of food to eat and what's not. And so introduce this tool, the scale, which is sort of just like it's sort of like the truth serum. Not like, I don't know, maybe not truth serum. It's just like this, it's this very objective mirror that just says, how are all of those variables in this very complex life with this complex evolutionary biology at play, and like, how's it all playing out in your life right now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you and I don't want to call it like winning or losing the game. It's just like, is your body getting bigger because of the overconsumption relative to what you're doing? Is your body getting smaller as a result of you under-consuming or maybe purposefully trying to lose weight? Like, what is happening there? And I think what we've seen is that people are struggling across the board to manage those realities with average weights of people going up and up and up. So much so, like, the struggle is so real. Not only is it evident in the rising rates of obesity, but it's so real and almost insurmountable that there has been an entire movement to just create acceptance around people being overweight. Because, and you know, the body positivity movement is a reflection of, wow, like, we're not figuring this out. We're not able to get people to a place where they can just live their lives and have a healthy body weight and not think about it. It's just not the way our society and modern life is set up anymore, and it will never go back to that. We'll never go back to hunter-gatherer days when, like, people were just generally a healthy, normal body weight because there was a scarcity of food. It's just not the case anymore. It takes work, it takes attention, it takes effort, and more attention, effort than people are capable or have shown to be capable of doing in mass numbers in the past several, decades or 100 years, to the point where people are just overall bigger, and we're saying, okay, well, that we have to create acceptance around that, because the last thing we want is for people to feel shamed for doing what now the majority of people are doing. It's like, it's like if you're like 1 out of 1,000, I'm not to say we should shame anybody, but it's like you're 1 out of 1,000, like you're the exception to the rule. Like, come on, like what you got to get on board. It's like, no, now the majority is overweight and obese, and we're still trying to like pretend like they're the outcasts. It's like, well, guess what? Like, no, that's now becoming the norm. And okay, how do we help that group feel more accepted? So anyway, that was like, I don't know if that was useful context, but that is how I think about this thing in like, from like a big picture, like, and so where does that scale fit into that? It's just a way to objectively say, how are we doing in this very dynamic, complex system and society and modern living around food.
Yeah. So on one end of the spectrum, you have the body positivity movement that's like, throw out the scale, no scale, just let's all be perfectly accepting of where we are. And I think now that's shifting a little bit to the body neutrality movement, which is a little bit different. But the other side of the spectrum is the weighing yourself every day, getting really fixated on that number, making that a part of your self-worth or determine whether you have a good day or a bad day. And as a fit person, where do you sit on that spectrum?
I mean, within 2 consecutive calendar years, I have gone from weighing myself every single day, it being a tool that felt like it was very supportive of my goals and helpful and a great accountability factor, and generally made me feel confident in my body and good about what I was doing, to weighing myself every day and getting like overwhelmed by seeing what the number was doing and if it was changing, to avoiding the scale for 8 to 9 months and being like, I'm not doing that anymore, to now being back in a routine of doing it again. I'm not like, I don't sit in any one camp. Like, oh, you got to weigh yourself every day, or you shouldn't weigh yourself, and that's just look in the mirror, and or don't look in the mirror, or just be happy with what you got and just move and eat well. And I've kind of gone through enough just in this short recent span, let alone like my entire life, where I see it as it's a tool that has value until it doesn't, until it starts to create some negative feedback, which if it creates a negative feedback loop, which then gets you to not engage in the behaviors that would ultimately lead to you having the healthy body weight that you want, then it's not good. It's like if looking at the scale and seeing the number change makes you want to say F it to the whole nutrition plan and to trying to be consistent and to try and, get up and exercise, then let's put the scale away and then try and just stay committed to making good choices and moving, and then, maybe come back to the scale another time. Or so I don't sit in one specific camp, but I do see that it has tremendous, it can have tremendous value. And if we could look at it as just like an objective number, like, that's how much I got in my bank account. Like, I know there's a lot of judgment and shame and feelings of self-worth that come with that, but it's like, I got this much in my bank account today, and tomorrow I got this much. Oh man, I'm overspending. Okay, well, I got to spend a little less. And then, okay, now I got more in my bank account. I got more in my, okay, now I can afford to do that. And, it can be just an objective number that can really help guide a lot of what people are doing and the decisions that they're making. Because I see a lot of people getting hung up on, what should I do around nutrition? How many of this should I have? What should I have there? Like, I'm using these numbers. I'm using my data tracker. You got people who are very into consuming the data, and all of what they're attempting to accomplish, the objective truth is right there on the scale in many ways.
So if it is to be used as an objective tool, I think that there does have to be some recognition or some separation of all of the mental chatter that goes along with it. So one thing I've experienced recently is just, I've been weighing myself daily because I've been working on my nutrition. So I wanted to see I wanted to be closer tied to those numbers and those inputs. And then it's like one day my weight might go up by 2 pounds, and then the next day it's down by 0.2, and then the next day it's down by 3 pounds. And it's like sort of these big fluctuations. And it's such a mental roller coaster to go along that ride, even with relatively small changes. But how do you frame the mental inputs and what you're seeing on the scale if you are going to use it as an objective tool?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy, but like some people like look at the stock market, right? And it's like, if you're playing the long game with the stock market, then, it could be up today, it could be down today, it could be, whatever. Like the little ticker on the NASDAQ is going like up and down all the time. But, the long-term play is to just keep dollar cost averaging, like invest, $500 a month forever, right? Some months, like you get a deal because, the stock market's down. Some months it's up and you're not getting as, it's like, but you just keep playing the same game. And the same thing, it kind of goes with, the scale. It's like whatever you're trying to accomplish, if you're trying to gain weight, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to maintain, the scale is going to kind of do a little bit of that like up and down ticker tape, like just sort of, it's not going to look like a smooth line.
Right.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, like on a cellular level. But the main thing that's going on is that within a short span of time, your body can accumulate or it can get rid of a tremendous amount of water and or waste from your your digestive system. So you can be holding a little bit more of your food in your digestive system, like the actual fibrous material, like poop. You can have more poop inside of you, or you can be flushing out a lot of water. And water is an interesting thing because water in the body, this can be manipulated by a lot of things that you don't even realize. But any solutes, anything that like, dissolves into water is also dissolving and then getting, sent around maybe into your cells of your body. You could have a lot of salt one day, and guess what happens when you have a lot of salt? Like salt needs to travel with water wherever it's going. So now you have a little bit more salt in your body. You pull a bunch of water in. You could pull up as much as 2 pounds of water in a 10-hour period, and you just gain 2 pounds overnight, or within a day. And same thing goes, like you had a day where you actually just, maybe 2 days in a row, you just didn't eat a lot of salt. You didn't even realize you did that. And now your body is flushing out a lot of that water it was holding on to as a result of having extra salt. And I'm not saying you should stop eating salt because it's going to help you lose weight. Like
right.
Losing water weight and gaining water weight is not weight loss and weight gain. It's you just absorbing more or less water into your body. Weight loss and weight gain is when you lose body fat or gain body fat or lose muscle mass or gain muscle mass. Those are the only tissues. Those are the tissues that we were trying to manipulate when we're talking about weight gain and weight loss. Yes, somebody might want to like lose 5 pounds before the weekend's like party, because 5 pounds, if you're a 140-pound person, that's going to significantly change how you feel in your clothes. And you can like do some, you can manipulate things to like lose that much water really fast. That's why people like cut out carbs for like a week. Like you cut out carbs for a week, and then like for the final day, you like don't drink any water. It's like you could lose 5 pounds of water because now you've just released all your glycogen. You've burned it all up. Now that means water loss out of your muscles. Plus you don't drink water, so you're not hydrating other cells. Like in total, you could lose that much. But guess what? The second the party's over on the weekend and you just go have a normal meal and then you drink, a few glasses of water, like all that water is going to come back. So you didn't lose weight. You just sort of manipulated your current state. That's what wrestlers and, body weight class athletes do in the final hours of weigh-ins, is that they'll be 180 pounds on Thursday, and then they have weigh-ins on Saturday morning, and they'll be 165 pounds. They can like literally cut like 15 pounds of water. It's super sketchy. It's not healthy. But then they immediately go have a meal and drink a bunch of water. And then when they step in the ring, they're 180 pounds again.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's like, I'm a 165 athlete. It's like, yeah, but you're punching me when you're 185 pounds. And
right.
That it hurts a lot more than a 165 pound punch.
Exactly.
So anyway, all that's to say, like, this is going to bounce up and down.
Mm-hmm.
when we start to see fat loss and muscle gain, this happens over weeks and months.
Yeah.
And so you really want to be looking at averages over periods of time. And if you get caught up in the daily spikes or the daily, like drops, then you can, it creates a psychological shitstorm where you're just like, oh, this is not working. Oh, this is working great. And then the next day you're like, I'm back up. I didn't lose any weight.
Yeah.
But if you look at it over like a month or 2 weeks at a time or a week at a time, you can see if there's trends. And that's why weighing daily is actually valuable, because if you just weigh on Monday and then next Monday, then Monday of this week might be one of your low days, but Monday of next week might be one of your high, I retain more water.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, I gained a pound this week. But the reality was, like, if you had done every single day, what you would actually see is that in week 1, your average was actually half a pound up from your week 2 starting point. And you're like, oh, because like in that week, you had some really high days that you didn't even track. You didn't even weigh yourself on. You just happened to weigh yourself on the lowest day of week 1, and you weighed yourself on the highest day of week 2. So that's the risk of doing it in like sort of this, I'll step on it every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I think that the daily process is important, but then only looking at the average of a week compared to the average of a next week, compared to the average of the next week. And there's somebody, a fitness coach and influencer, I don't know, coach is a better word, but Jordan Syatt, who I think does a really good job of depicting this process on his social media. And he calls those spikes and whooshes. And he says, if you stick to, and he's just done it so many times and he's seen it so many times that like, he'll actually show going through like a weight cut. And he'll do like he does this mini cut. It's like a month of like where he's going to eat in a calorie deficit. And he's going to just do his normal movement. He's going to stick to the plan, and he shows every single day. And just like clockwork, he does this every like 4 months or 6 months or a year, whatever. It's like he has these big spikes and he's like, what do you guys think is going to happen tomorrow? He takes a poll. He's like, someone's like, I think you're going to be up tomorrow. I think you're going to be down. And it's like, you never know what's going to happen. But he's always like, I've done this enough. Like I've had 2 days where I'm kind of on the up, which means my body's kind of doing this thing where it's like, it's freaking out. Something's happening. I'm losing, I don't have enough calories. I'm holding on to things. And then he calls it the whoosh, like on the 3rd or 4th day, he has the big whoosh. He's like, look at that, guys. I dropped 3 pounds in this one day. How crazy is that? But ultimately he ends up showing these trends of just like, you stick to the process, this happens. But people look at the scale, they see one spike, they get mental about it, and they're like, this diet's not working, or this thing is not working, or I'm sad about that, so I'm going to go have a few more bites of the thing in the cupboard, and they eat 400 or 500 calories of just like handfuls of little chocolates or whatever, and they kind of kill what was about to be this like momentous swing for them. So that is just one way to like kind of put context around like, well, what should you expect out of stepping on the scale?
Yeah.
And it's really like, I'm setting a plan for weeks and months to try and accomplish a goal, and I have to track it every day, but I'm really going to only look at the averages that are happening over that period of time.
Yeah. Okay, so say someone signs up for our Persist program. They go on the FBB website and they use the macro calculator.
Yeah.
They get their macros and they're like, yeah, I'm in. I'm going to do like this 6-week training cycle, and I'm going to stick to these macros and these calories. I got my numbers. I'm going to what? Like, how does someone put that into practice with measuring?
Yeah. Well, if somebody's going to get their macros and their kind of calories from our website, just know that there's a lot of like, subjective inputs that you put in there, right? Like, yeah, you're going to put your body weight. Yeah, you're going to put in your body composition if you know what it is, but then how accurate is that body composition, and, your age and your sex and all of the things you put in. And then there's this, how much do you move? It's like, well, I'm sedentary, I'm low activity, I'm moderate, I'm high, I'm I'm a heavy exerciser. Those we give pretty good descriptions, but so much of your activity level is not dependent upon how much you train and how hard you train. Like you could train 4 days a week like a savage for 90 minutes and then sit the rest of the day and you're a sedentary person. So, that can be subjective. Like, oh, I think I'm this, but in reality, I actually sit a lot. So we're giving people more and more information, data, and tools on like, how do you actually know that? Like, get yourself a pedometer, like see how many steps you take in a day. Like, what are you really doing? If you're under 6,000 or 5,000 steps a day, I don't care what you're doing for training. Like, unless you're riding a bike, 4 hours a day, like you're categorically sedentary. Like you're getting into this category of not moving very much. And then in addition, outside of activity and then those inputs that you put in, there might be some other subtle differences in like what your metabolic output is on a given day. But let's just say you get those numbers. That is not truth and absolute certainty that this is what is going to drive the results that you are chasing. It is a general guide and an educated guide as to like, this is ballpark where we need to head with your nutrition. So, okay, that's where you start. You got to understand what the numbers mean. Secondly, if you're going to use those numbers, the best way to actually create a nutrition plan or a path that keeps you in those numbers is one of high level of simplicity. So what do I mean by that? If you go and eat, I'll make the number simple, 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs, and 100 grams of fat every day. I don't know who would be eating that diet, but whatever. It's 100, 100, 100. Those are your macros, okay? If your macro calculator spits out 100, 100, 100, I want to know.
We need to give you a prize.
You get a prize. Okay. Today, you're going to go and you're going to try and hit that with, oatmeal and chicken and this and that. Like, you create a menu, right? Then the next day, you're going to hit it with a whole different menu. And the next day, you're going to hit it with a whole different menu. Every day, you're like logging it and it's like, it's fitting my macros, right? When you're getting your macros and your energy from different food sources and different things all the time, and you're like, I'm going to eat out, but I'm going to track that. Like, I'm going to make this thing at home. I'm going to buy this little thing at the store and, eat it out of a package, but I scan the label and it's got this. There's a high degree of variability in what food labels and what you actually are consuming based upon what's on a label versus what you're actually consuming. It's not so like clear cut. Like, just because you scan the back of the barcode and it said 170 calories doesn't mean that it's 170 calories in that thing. I think the number is somewhere in the 20% range, that they can be off 20%. A food company can be off 20%, and the FDA says that's fine because we can't be that accurate with these things. So if you're doing a different type of group of food every day, if you're constantly changing up what you're eating, then some days you might be nailing the numbers, some days you might be missing the numbers. And it's hard to know if it's all balancing out to the same or if you're actually consuming more. Very difficult. Plus, if you're getting very complicated with your meals and you're eating different things and you're not in a structured eating approach where it's like kind of the same thing every day, it is extremely easy to just be a poor record keeper and just like forget that you had an extra bite of the thing. Like, and I do not judge people for this at all. Like, I'm not saying this from a judgmental place, but I will watch people in my family or that I know, and it's like they taste the thing over here and they're like, oh, they tried this thing over there, and I'm like, that is all adding up to probably 400 calories a day, and they don't even know that they wouldn't even think to track that thing. They're like pouring in the thing, and it's just like they're not measuring what they just poured in, and again, it's not judgment. It's just like, if we're not really paying close attention, then you're not even really following macros. You're not really following your numbers. You're just sort of guessing. And if you're going to do this thing, why guess? Like, why take the time to like do all this stuff if you're not going to actually do it, more closely? Now, what you don't have to weigh and measure every single thing, but you can, if you create something that's like, I eat this way most days, it's like I eat kind of a similar breakfast, I eat a similar lunch, I eat a similar dinner, and I have a similar post-workout, and I do it 7 days a week or 14 days in a row, or for a month. Like, now you're starting to get to something that's like, okay, it's pretty easy to track that and know like you're getting something consistent. Whether the numbers on the package are above or below, at least it's consistent every day. So when you implement your macros that you get off the calculator, and then you go weigh yourself and you see that you haven't lost any weight, well, guess what? Now you can go and look at your structure, your daily meal plan, or what you're doing on a consistent basis, and you can be like, oh, this is my maintenance. I'm not losing or gaining weight. I'm just staying the same. Now, if I really want to go and lose weight, I got to cut something out of this. I got to go into a 10, 20% deficit. So this is how you can really leverage a tool like that, is one, understand that it's not a perfect system, and you're just getting a somewhat of a subjective, estimated, educated guess on what your number should be. Then when you go and implement those numbers, know that if you're highly variable with the kinds of foods that you're eating and the way that you eat and the times that you eat, and you might be introducing a lot of error to your calculations and to your number tracking.
Yep.
And then if you're being more consistent, then you have an actual foundation, and I call this structure. If you have a food eating structure that is consistent, then the scale becomes the tool that helps you to know, is this working? And not your daily weight, but your average weight over a week or 2 weeks tells you, okay, in 2 weeks, my average has gone down by 0.5 or 1 pounds. Okay, I'm on track. This is going in the right direction. You likely shouldn't lose more than, I don't know, say if you're, it's like a 200-pound person, at most, you might want to lose 1% of your body weight per week, 2 pounds per week. That would be aggressive, right? So if you're a 100-pound person, you probably shouldn't be trying to chase weight loss, but let's say you're like 150, 1% of your body weight is a pound and a half. A pound and a half a week would be an aggressive fat loss strategy.
Yeah.
A pound and a half every 2 weeks, okay, that's more reasonable. So that's what you want your average to start to change and look like. And you're using the scale on a daily basis to just help you figure out what your average actually is, and not get so caught up in that one day that you measured on week 2 that was a spike, and then that one day you measured on week 1 that was a whoosh. It's like, oh shoot, like you picked the wrong days to weigh, and now you feel like you're, you just gained 3 pounds on this diet. It's like, yeah, it can look like that if you just pull two data points out of the 100.
Yeah. And some other way to measure is helpful as well, like photos or tape measure.
Yeah. Another way can be helpful. However, I think that the scale is sufficient, because if you're doing it consistently, like on the daily, and you're looking at averages, that really, like the other ways of measuring, I think, that people take, like photos and, like circumference measurements and things like that, were a way to help calm their emotions when the scale was doing something that was weird.
Yeah.
But we just demystified that. It's not doing anything weird. It's doing a very normal thing. It's going up and down, up and down, up and down. We just want to see that the average of those up and downs is going in the right trend line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, oh, I want you to take these before and after pictures, so that we know you're getting better. It's like, if after the end of a month, the scale hasn't changed, the average hasn't changed at the end of the month, and someone's like, but look at your before and after pictures. It's like, but I want to lose weight. The weight loss isn't working. Like you can, and the number of people out there that are like technically recomping their body, like a 1-for-1, like fat loss, muscle gain. That's not the majority of people. It's certainly not people who've been training for a long time. Those are like newbies, right?
Yeah.
Recomposition happens over years. Like when you see it's the female body, side by side, where it's like I'm 140 pounds at 25% body fat, and I'm 140 pounds at 15% body fat. It's like, whoa, dramatically different. Those are not 30-day changes. Those are not 6-month changes. Those are like 3, 4, 5-year changes for somebody, really. Like you don't 1-for-1 recomposition that quickly. That means like this person is building muscle over years, and they were losing fat over years and building muscle. And maybe they actually went through like a muscle building phase and then a fat loss phase, and they kind of went, cut bulk. Like that recomp process is, it's not as accessible as people would like to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have more questions on the scale, and if we missed some key element of this, and I recognize that we didn't dive deep into the psychological, emotional state of the scale, which maybe is for another time, but we welcome those questions via DM, and we can maybe even touch on this stuff in a newsletter if you guys would like, but let us know. Hope this was helpful.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye.